Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, don't look now. Jaden McDaniels is a legitimate offensive weapon. We'll talk about what has changed the most in Jaden's game to make him a real threat. Also, Wolves Heat tonight. We'll preview that one. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend. Happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves play tonight in South Beach against the Miami Heat. We'll preview that one toward the end of the show today. Lots to get to first, though. We'll go ahead and call this the Jaden McDaniels episode. We're going to spend most of the show talking about Jaden, what's changed for him recently, really all for the better. Some of the adjustments the Wolves have made on either end of the floor with Jaden McDaniels, and I think one feeds into the other. We'll talk about his shot mix, some of the things he's doing better year over year, and also some of the things that have just evolved over the course of this season to date. So plenty to talk about related to Jaden McDaniels. First, though, off the top, a big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder, you can subscribe to the daily Locked On Wolves newsletter at lockedondaily.com. It's one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at lockedondaily.com. All right. Let's talk Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels has been awesome this season for Minnesota, and especially over the past, call it 2 months or so, which is a little, not arbitrary, a little, that's about right. About 2 months since he's been great. Quick, like, when I talk Jaden McDaniels, I've been harder on Jaden, like, I'll just start here, than anybody. I thought he was a little overrated early in his career as a defender. I thought, yeah, he looks the part, but just because he looks the part doesn't mean he's an effective defender. I think he got there somewhere during his second season. He started to show like he really knew what he was doing. And, you know, that was certainly a positive thing. Then as he transitioned into more of a playing more three, once the Timberwolves acquired Rudy Gobert, he kind of came into his own offensively. Like, the way I've always described this with Jaden McDaniels, and bear with me if you've heard me say this before, but his rookie season, it was like, didn't know what to do. It was basically like, all right, I got the pass, I'm going to shoot a three. And that was essentially the offensive game. And that's really all he did. He shot it okay. He shot 36% for three, but the opportunities weren't really there, but more than half his shot attempts were threes. And when he didn't do that, he was dribbling into tough long twos. Then year two, it was mostly the tough long twos. It was like, all right, I'm going to pump fake, get somebody in the air and drive, except for it was like the same thing every time. It was a pump fake drive, tough long two. And then year three was like the perfect mix. It was, he shot less threes, but he shot 40% from 3-point range when he did shoot threes. He got to the line more than any other time in his career. And this was his first year really playing mostly the three. And he had a career high assist rate. It was still really good defensively. That's when he really took off defensively. And then last year, the offensive game took a clear step back. Wasn't rebounding the basketball on either end of the floor. Was still turning it over without getting any assists. Career or lowest free throw rate since his rookie year. The 3-point rate went up a little, but the percentage dropped considerably, under 34%, so well below league average. And so I was a little worried about, like, hey, they just hitched their wagon to this guy prior to last year from a contract extension standpoint. And yes, he was all NBA or NBA all defensive second team, but the offensive game took a step back. And now this season, it's all coming together. This is clearly the best all-around season for Jaden McDaniels, whether or not he makes an all-defensive team, which he should, and we'll talk about that. But across the board, he's just simply playing better this season. I do think Rudy Gobert being out has fed into that a little bit. And we'll talk about what that means on the defensive end of the floor first. But I want to start with just some of the clear, like, the numbers that prove that he's better this year than ever before. Rebounding, career high total rebound rate, career high offensive and defensive rebound rates. He's back to playing a lot more at the 4 this season because of course, the absence of Karl-Anthony Towns. And even though Julius Randle's on the team, he's playing more 4 and also, I guess, factor in the Rudy Gobert injury. Randle was out for a while. Like, he's had to play the 4 more frequently over the past couple of months, which has coincided with some of this offensive improvement. All that to say, like, we could trace the rebounding improvement back to the playoffs last year. And I've talked about this a lot before too. In that Phoenix Suns series, the Wolves identified, hey, look, Phoenix gives up a lot of corner 3-point opportunities. They also give up a lot of offensive rebounds. We're not an offensive rebounding team, but we like to shoot from the corners. And Phoenix they don't have the size because Nurkic couldn't hang with the Wolves last year. So they played Durant at the center spot a lot. That we're going to be advantageous if Jaden McDaniels' corner crashes. And what happens in the playoffs? Jaden McDaniels averages, I think he had 4. I've got it here. He had 12 offensive rebounds over 4 games. So that's 3 offensive rebounds a game for Jaden McDaniels in a series when he averaged, I guess he played 36 minutes a game, but 3 offensive rebounds a game is a significant rate. He also had 13 offensive rebounds in the series against Denver, although that was a 7-game series. So that was a little less than 2 per game, but still above what he was doing during the regular season. The defensive rebounding went up a little bit as well, not significantly, but it continued to improve. Early this season, I thought it dipped a little bit, but it's really skyrocketed recently. If the rate-based numbers don't mean a lot to you, you can look at the average, the total per game. He's averaging 5.9, so call it 6 rebounds per game. His previous career high was his second season, 4.2, and last year it was only 3.1 rebounds per game. So he's nearly doubled his rebound per game total. I like to look at it rate-based wise. He jumped from an 8.7% defensive rebound rate last year, which is inexcusable, unacceptable for essentially a 7-footer who's as long and as athletic as Jaden McDaniels. He had a 8.7% defensive rebound rate last year. That's up to a 14.3% defensive rebound rate. His total rebound rate up from 6% to 10%, again, a career high, and the offensive rebound rate up significantly from 3.2% to a career high 5.6%. That has made a huge difference in terms of Jaden's overall impact on the floor. And again, we've seen that increase recently as he's been tasked with playing more power forward due to the injuries, first to Julius Randle and then to Rudy Gobert. He's just been part of that big man rotation for Minnesota now here this season, and has played more 4 than he had previously under Chris Finch, or at least since the arrival of Rudy Gobert. Assist rate currently, believe it or not, is a career high 8.8%, up slightly from where it was a couple of years ago. And at the same time, we've seen the usage rate and the turnover rate go in the correct direction. It's exactly the same trend we saw last season from Anthony Edwards. The assist rate went up, the turnover rate went down, and the usage rate still went up. Jaden McDaniels this season has a career high assist rate, a career low turnover rate, which is a good thing, and a career high usage rate, up a little bit over where it was the last couple of seasons. What does that mean? Well, in a nutshell, it means the game is slowing down for him. And I know that's a cliche, and I know this is year 5, but I think it's true. Like, you can see the processing for Jaden McDaniels. He's much less rushed, much less hurried than he was his first 2-3, even last year, 2-3 seasons, or even last year here in the NBA. He's calmer, he's less rushed, he's more calculated in his decision making, but he's not playing slow. He just looks more comfortable. And having a career best in assist rate, turnover rate, and usage rate tracks with that assertion. That to me, other than some of the shooting stuff we'll get to here in a minute, is the most impressive combination of factors. The rebounding combined with, hey, this dude knows what he's doing now with the basketball in his hands. First couple of years, it was panic. It was shoot or pump fake, dribble into a tougher 2-pointer. That was it. And then it was like, I'm going to put my head down and get to the rim, which was a little bit of year 3 where he had the career high free throw rate. Currently this year, it's his second best free throw rate in his 5 seasons in the league as well. So that's also in a good place. And here again, recently of late, he's getting to the line a lot more frequently. It's the right combination of things for Jaden McDaniels. Lastly, in terms of rate-based stats, the steal rate is at a career high. And that's actually not a bad segue to what I want to talk about next. A little bit about how the defensive role has shifted for him. And, well, actually, that's not a good segue because I wanted to hit shooting numbers. We'll come back to the steal rate. How about that? We'll do shooting numbers next. We'll come back to the steal rate and talk about the defensive role and how I do think that's played into some some improved offensive effectiveness and offensive efficiency for Jaden McDaniels. So we'll talk about all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Prizepicks. Basketball season is heating up. About to be a big college tournament coming up here this month as well. There's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prizepicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's easy to use, available in over 30 states, and lets you mix and match projections across different sports. You can build lineups yourself. For instance, this week, maybe you think Anthony Edwards is going to score more than 25 points on Friday night in Miami. Maybe Jason Tatum will get more than 8 rebounds in a game here this weekend. Also, that's a ton of fun to do, by the way. Building lineup is obviously the most fun part. You can also do it very quickly and very easily. Prizepicks has made it super simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks. Run your game. All right. Let's talk about some of the Jaden McDaniels shooting numbers. I talked about the 3-point rate already, and that is actually the second lowest of his career. The 3-point percentage is also the second lowest of his career. So he's actually shooting even worse than he did from last year from outside the arc. But again, that's an area that's trending in the right direction here lately because the shot selection has been more judicious. And that like weird leaner, like fadeaway thing where he's like parallel to the floor that I ripped on him for the last couple of years, that's actually become a really effective shot for him. So 2 years ago, when he was shooting the 3 well, but not shooting quite enough of them, he was shooting, I thought, too many shots from like the 3 to 16 foot range, call it. Like not at the rim, but not 3-pointers and not exactly long 2s either, because he wasn't making them at a high enough clip. Last season, he was over 50% in the 10 to 16 foot range, which is fine. That's pretty good. Still not a super efficient shot. This season, from 10 to 16 feet, he's shooting a little over 12% of his shots from there, which is the highest mark of his career. So, a couple of those a game. He's shooting 56%, 56.3% from 10 to 16 feet away from the basket. At 12% isn't like a huge number of shots, but he's shooting those shots more than he's shooting the 16 foot to 3-point line. And the increase there is greater than in any other place on the floor in terms of the frequency of those shots. Like he's shooting essentially 3% more shots there than he was previously, which is the same number up. That's a weird way to say that. The same increase he has at the rim, and everywhere else is pretty flat. He's just shooting a little bit less from 3 to 10 feet and a little bit more from 10 to 16 feet. 56.3% in that range. For some context, Kevin Durant from 10 to 16 feet for his career is 48%. This year is 53%, which is a really good mark. It's worse than Jaden McDaniels. Last year is 49% from that range. And I know Durant shoots like obviously shoots more frequently from the 16-foot plus range, but in the 10 to 16-foot range, that's currently where 31% of Kevin Durant's shots are coming from. So a third of Kevin Durant's shots basically are coming from this 10 to 16-foot range, and he's shooting them at a slightly lower clip and has for his career at a clip that's 8 points lower than what Jaden McDaniels is shooting from that range this year. I'm not doing that because he looks like Kevin, or he doesn't look like Kevin Durant, because of his body type, his build being similar to Kevin Durant, I promise. I'm giving you an example of that's also like, people see it like him and Brandon Ingram are the other guys who are like almost 7 feet or basically 7 feet, but don't want to be called 7-footers that are lanky and have long arms and maybe have similar shooting forms. But like the key takeaway here is because of McDaniel's size and because of the way he shoots that shot. Now, Kevin Durant's is more of a Kevin Garnett style fadeaway, like turnaround jumper, whereas McDaniel's is like parallel to the floor. I'm going to lean all the way back like I'm on a cot, basically. Like, this is what I'm doing. It doesn't make sense, but it means it can't get blocked. He gets the shot off. And I poked fun at it before in the past because it just wasn't an effective shot. And now it is. 56% is nuts. It's actually probably not sustainable. But and again, we're still talking about a couple of shots a game from that range, but he shoots that shot 4 times more often than he does long twos, and he shoots that shot nearly as much as he does from the 3 to 10 foot range. And by the way, the 3 to 10 foot range, that's actually trended in the wrong direction this year. He's only 43% in that range, which is the second worst mark of his career from 3 to 10 feet. And like, I'll use Durant again. He actually shoots that a little bit less than him, but Durant's 57% when he gets to 3 to 10 feet. And Jaden is again 43%. So room for growth there. But the point is, he's being more judicious with his shot selection. And when he's shooting in that 10 to 16 foot range, that he gets to that Jaden range, he's really effective. And it also, given what he did last year, he was almost 50% from 3 to 10 feet. If he gets a little closer, he's not only better, but that also gives us hope that he can continue to grow that range a little bit and be that much better in the 10 to 16 foot area of the floor. We talked about the 3-point shooting already. There's room for growth there, but I think the recent increase in free throw rate, the uptick in offensive rebound rate, and all the other stuff we talked about already in terms of decision making, that is what's driving the overall improvement in effectiveness and overall improvement in efficiency. All that trending in the right direction for Jaden, and the fact that he has shot threes at a better clip and he has shot that 3 to 10 foot range better in the past gives me hope that he can continue, that he can raise to that level again. Remember, this dude's only 24 years old. I think it's 100% possible that he will get better in those ranges, and he's only going to continue to improve overall offensively. The other thing I want to talk about is what's changed for him on the defensive end of the floor, which has allowed him to explore expanding his game on offense. Number one, he's not getting into foul trouble as often. Why is that? Combination of factors. One, I just think he's playing smarter. That's an easy one, but I think that's true. The second piece of it is, and I didn't pull all the B-ball index numbers, but on B-ball index, you can look and see, what the usage tiers are that you're guarding. And Jaden's always near the top of the league in terms of guarding the highest usage players on the opposing team. That has changed a little bit this year with the, when Anthony Edwards is healthy. Obviously, you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now you add Jalen Clark to the mix. Even Mike Conley. Like, all these guys, depending on the matchup, can guard the point of attack effectively, which means you don't need Jaden McDaniels to do it. And without Rudy Gobert on the floor, I talked about this in the wake of giving up 1 billion paint points and a 1.5 billion offensive rebounds to Charlotte the other night. And frankly, the same thing against the Sixers on Tuesday. The Wolves miss Rudy Gobert's rim protection when he's out. He's been out now nearly a month. And especially in the wake of that injury, the Timberwolves have been playing Jaden McDaniels off the ball a little bit more defensively to at least give them some semblance of rim protection. If he's guarding the point of attack all the time, then there's nobody on the back line that's truly a shot blocking threat. Naz is a good weak side help shot blocker, but he's not as scary as Jaden McDaniels. He's not the defender. He's a solid defender, and he's improved tremendously, but he's not Jaden McDaniels. And so the Wolves, that was a conscious decision. And the other benefit of it is Jaden's not getting into foul trouble. And that hasn't been an all-season thing, and it also depends on the matchup a little bit. Like, obviously, if you're playing, we'll use Phoenix again as an example with a Durant and a Beal and a Booker. Like, yeah, you need Jaden to guard one of those guys. But, like, if it's a team that's got one threat, like the Charlotte game where we saw Ant guarding LaMelo a bunch, then allow Jaden to roam. Allow Jaden to play off the ball, to preserve his fouls, to preserve a little bit of energy, which I think has helped him on the offensive end of the floor, and allow him to also rim protect. I mean, he had 4 blocks the other night. I think it was the Sixers game he had 4 blocks in. Like, you'll get a few of those kind of spikes in shot blocking games from Jaden. This, by the way, while the block rate is up from last year, it's actually the second lowest of his career. It's the steal rate that has improved. Again, playing off the ball, being locked in. Ant is so much better on the ball defensively than he is off the ball. And that's another reason for it, is like, when Ant's on the ball, he's mostly locked in and ready to go, especially if it's an intriguing, enticing matchup. Whereas off the ball, Ant can get distracted. Jaden's pretty well locked in all the time defensively. Even off the ball, or I should say, well, not even off the ball, I would say equally so off the ball, where he's jumping passing lanes and getting deflections and racking up stocks. That's a huge benefit to a benefit of using Jaden McDaniels in that way, in addition to keeping him out of foul trouble. So all that to say, the adjustments defensively, I believe, have fueled what he's been able to do on offense because it's taken some mileage off of him defensively. It's fueled some fast break opportunities, and it's probably increased some confidence as well. And then he's also got the energy to do some of this stuff, right? It's the reverse of when Anthony Edwards, sometimes when he has to have a really tough defensive assignment and carry the offense, that can be counterintuitive for the Wolves. And so Chris Finch, it's on him to pull the right levers, to push the right buttons, to make sure that the right guys are in the right matchups in against certain opponents. And, whatever's most advantageous to also get the most possible out of these guys on the offensive end of the floor. Moral of the story is Jaden McDaniels is better across the board this year. Other than 3-point percentage, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything to complain about the body of work Jaden's put together in 2/3 of a season to this point. Seriously, it's been awesome for Jaden McDaniels. The rebound rate, the shot selection, the assists and usage going up, but the turnovers going down, the steal rate at a career high. It's all great for Jaden McDaniels. All right, let's close by talking about the matchup between the Wolves and the Heat tonight. We have not seen Miami since November. And yes, Miami looks quite differently from what they did, what they looked like then. So we'll break down that matchup here next to close the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using the live betting feature at FanDuel. Keeps every moment of the game exciting. If the Wolves are down, but you think they're going to have a late game rally, you could definitely key in on that. Or maybe you just think Ant or somebody else is going to hit a clutch 3 for the Wolves, but you can also bet on that. You'll never feel like you missed your chance with FanDuel's live betting feature. Plus, the app is so easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's talk Wolves Heat tonight in South Beach. Miami's a weird one. Miami is currently 29-32. We all know the Jimmy Butler saga. Around the time he was traded, this team was hovering around 500. Guess what? They are still. They still have Bam Adebayo. They still have Tyler Hero. They now have Andrew Wiggins. They've also got Kyle Anderson, a couple of former Timberwolves who both were playing with the Warriors this year. It's just a weird team. Go look at their box score from when they lost to Cleveland. They only lost by 5 to Cleveland earlier this week. And of course, Bam Adebayo led the team with 34 points. Kevin Love started. He's been kind of fringe rotation type guy. He started against the Wolves in the fall as well. But you have Duncan Robinson coming off the bench, had 14 points. Slow-Mo played 26 minutes off the bench. His minutes have been a little bit all over the place since joining Miami. Terry Rozier, of course, still on the team. Tyler Hero was sick, so he didn't play Wednesday in the game. They only lost by 5. I believe he's questionable for the game as of this recording on Friday night. It's just an odd team because Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo are legit all-star caliber players. They're all all-stars. And either one of them could go off and you're going to be in big trouble against this Miami team. I meant to mention this in the FanDuel read a moment ago, but the Wolves are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Rudy Gobert, by the way, is questionable. There's a chance he plays. He's the only one on the injury report. So Ant's off the report. Conley didn't play due to rest. He's going to play. Randle and DiVincenzo off the injury report and now have been good for about a week each. Or, I don't know, a little over a week for Dante, not quite a week for Julius. But injury report-wise, Miami's a little bit all over the place. Let's see, who else do we have on their injury report? I mentioned Tyler Hero. Oh, Jaime Jaquez would be another one. Jaime Jaquez Jr., he's been day-to-day with an ankle. And of course, he's missed a little bit more time. Jovic is out. He had a big game against Minnesota in November. He's out potentially for the rest of the year. There's a ton of talent on this team. There still is. Davion Mitchell, there's a lot of guys. even without Jimmy Butler. And by the way, they're 3 games under 500. They're at number 1 in their division in the Eastern Conference. First of all, divisions are weird in the NBA. But all that to say, they've still got one of the top 5 coaches in the league. Like this is still a dangerous team, and I'm a little worried about this one. I know I said that about the Charlotte game, and I was wrong. But I always worry about the Florida trips for Minnesota. It's weird that it's not Orlando and Miami in the same trip, but I worry a little bit. Now, in terms of the actual matchup, Miami's not a big offensive rebounding team, which is positive because that's something that kills the Wolves, time and time again. Adebayo is really the only guy you got to worry about on the offensive glass for Miami. And if Rudy Gobert doesn't play, you got to worry a little bit more about it, certainly. That to me is a really positive thing. On the flip side, they also don't force that many turnovers. They're a decent team overall. They're top half of the league in terms of defensive rating. But they, let's see, defensive rebound rate. What was the other thing I was going to hit there? Oh, they don't turn you over that much. They're bottom third in the league in terms of turning opponents over. They're top 10 in defensive rebound rate, which isn't great for a Wolves team that has been focusing more on crashing the offensive glass. I actually don't love this matchup overall for the Wolves. And I would say the biggest thing is being physical with both Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. And it's hard to be physical with Tyler Hero, but I think you got to give it a go. You can't let him get, he shoots 10 threes a game. You can't let him have 7 open threes of his 10 threes that he's shooting. Got to get in his grill. Adebayo, you got to be physical in the paint with him. You have to put a body on him on both ends of the floor. He's the only guy that's really rebounding, grabbing offensive rebounds against you. Same with, I would also say like Jaime Jaquez is another one you got to pay attention to. He could, be sneaky with some of those. But be physical with both Adebayo and Tyler Hero. You never know with Andrew Wiggins. He likes to play against former teams. He could always go off as well. Although I think he missed the game the other night too. Yeah, he did miss the game with an ankle as well, but he's questionable against the Wolves. So a lot of guys are questionable in this game. It's a weird matchup. We remember when the Wolves lost back in November, it was I believe a 1-point loss. I'm gonna pull up the box score here. It was a 1-point loss, like second week of the season. At the time, the Timberwolves were 6-3 coming in, and it was like a high watermark for a while, and it felt like things were going to trend in the right direction. And then they lost to a short-handed Heat team in a game that saw Tyler Hero go for 26 on just 15 shots. Jovic had 15 off the bench and had a big shot down the stretch in that game. Nobody else had more than 11 points for Miami. The Wolves only gave up 95 points, but offensively for Minnesota, they only played 8 guys in this game. DiVincenzo, Reid, and Alexander Walker were the only guys to play off the bench in this game for Minnesota. Ant had 22, but it took him 24 shots to get there. Mike Conley was a minus 16 in the game. The Wolves lost by 1. And Julius Randle had 17, 6, and 6. Like, that was kind of it. Nas had 15 off the bench, I guess, but just a bad offensive game for Minnesota. 29% on threes, under 40% from the field, and they turned it over 19 times in this game. So I think if the Wolves play their game and they don't get caught into ISO ball, whether it's Ant or Randle, and this is a Heat team you can get out and run on. They're pretty good defensively, but they prefer to play slow, and they're more comfortable getting set in the half court. With the way the Wolves have played lately, why not, grab some long rebounds, get out and run? Why not crash the offensive glass and try and make things difficult for Miami to get, their offense set up the other direction? Again, Miami, a good defensive rebounding team, but if Gobert plays for Minnesota, they should have a real shot at controlling the paint and the glass. So very winnable game for Minnesota, 4.5-point favorites at FanDuel in Miami, but a matchup I'd be a little bit worried about. Peeking ahead, it's going to be super important to win this game. I say that every game is super important to win at this point in the season. Even though, as I always like to remind, the games count the same in March as they did back in October, but the stakes are higher as there's less remaining on the schedule. But San Antonio on Sunday, so 2 very winnable games. If the Wolves could win both of these and make it a 5-game winning streak before they head to Denver, 2 days of rest, Monday, Tuesday, head to Denver on Wednesday next week. That would be awesome. Post-game podcast tonight, post-game tonight over at Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube. Luke and Jack will have the Miami postcast I'll be back on Monday. That'll be the post-game pod following the Spurs game on Sunday. So we'll talk Spurs game Sunday. We'll have a bonus, not a bonus show, but a show in between there on Tuesday before Wednesday. We preview the Denver game on Wednesday night. Believe I'm hosting one of the postcasts next week as well. So, of course, the live postcast always over at Locked On Sports Minnesota on YouTube, and then the audio is right here at Locked On Wolves. You can hear Luke and Jack right here following the live show. That feed gets posted right here to Locked On Wolves. All right. That's all we got for you today here at Locked On Wolves. A big thank you for making this show your first listen every day. Of course, it's free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app, on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And a reminder, you can subscribe to the daily newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. One stop for Ultimate Wolves and NBA coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. Of course, the Locked On Wolves podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.